Sean, please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Sean Hooker. I'm Head of Redress at the Property Redress Scheme, which is an escalated complaint service that all letting agents and estate agents need to be a member of.
Excellent. And I've got a few questions here for you, just icebreaker questions, and I hope you'll oblige us and won't mind answering them. So, Sean, what's your favourite thing to eat?
Right, well, my favourite thing to eat is anything hot and spicy, to be honest, curry or something like that. Yeah, I'm a little bit of a chili fiend, to be honest. Although, you know, I do have even I have my limits on what I can eat, but no, I do love a curry.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. What is the most used app on your phone?
Unfortunately, it's LinkedIn. I'm a bit of again. I like my LinkedIn, keeping in touch with people, and you know, posting up interesting, hopefully interesting stories and bits of news which relate to the property arena. So I like LinkedIn. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. And I think I'll ask you one more, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
What is the one thing you think that everyone in the world ought to know?
How to be kind to each other. That's what I think.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you treat people with respect, then you can't go too far wrong.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Let's get to the meat and bones of what we were going to discuss today, which is our government white paper on, I think it's called the Fairer Private Rented Sector White Paper officially.
Yep, that's the title. I think that got that right. Yes.
And so, Sean, I mean, I'm sure you've read this several times over and been asked about it a few times. What were your immediate thoughts on the paper when you got it?
Well, there was very few surprises in it, to be honest, and that when you read it as in entirety, it's not as frightening as some people were fearing it was going to be. So that's the first thing there. It is a change. Of course, it's a change, but I don't think that anybody out there, tenants or landlords or estate agents and letting agents, should be overly worried about what's in the content at the moment.
Okay, fantastic. Were there any parts of the report that you found exciting, that you were keen to see executed?
Well, yeah, I've been a great advocate of early dispute resolution, mediation, and that sort of stuff. They leveling the playing fields for you know, for tenants who are renting from directly from landlords by introducing an ombudsman service for them. I was pleased that was in the paper. Also, mediation coming in for things like end of tenancy issues, possession orders and other stuff there. Bringing mediation in and bringing it in at an earlier stage than the government tried to do with their trial during the COVID crisis. Is
there anything just a little bit more on the mediation aspect? Because I know that obviously being involved with the Property Redress Scheme that you see a lot in that score. What would you say are the key benefits of having a mediation type service earlier on, especially when it comes to some of the key concerns that landlords have around, for example, damage to property or unpaid rent?
Well, it's essentially if you you get good early resolution and mediation, you know, you can resolve issues far quicker, far cheaper, and in many ways more satisfactory. You know, if you allow something to go all the way through to a court, by the time you get there, it's got very, very expensive, it's got very, very fractious, it's got very, very time consuming, and nobody really wins from those situations.
Okay, that's really good to know. So it sounds like that particular part of the paper is something that will be positive for both landlords and tenants.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and you know, we started a mediation service during the lockdown, and it was extremely successful. I think people, you know, the only issue is that people aren't necessarily kind of aware of, you know, the power of these sorts of things, or that they are a little bit kind of skeptical because they believe that they've got to the stage when, you know, they're never going to agree anything, but you would really be surprised. A little private conversation between the parties and you can find a solution. And there's somebody in between that has no kind of skin in the game for themselves, can really, bring parties together. So, people who have used it said, "Oh, why did I not know about this before?"
Yeah. But that brings me in mind what you said about understanding obligations, because from where I'm sitting, the advice to tenants is always, no matter what happens, don't stop paying your rent, even if you have a repair issue, etc., etc. So that's one of the things that I suppose needs education around what the tenant obligations are specifically and landlord obligations.
Yeah.
There's a part of the paper that speaks to helping or encouraging landlords to learn more about what their obligations are to tenants, and I hope vice versa. What are your thoughts about how we can improve landlord knowledge of their obligations?
Well, look, there are numerous laws and obligations out there, over 160 that, if individual laws that apply to being a landlord. Very few people, even my good self, would know every single one of them. Because most of the time you don't actually need them. However, there are some very, very basic ones, and landlords need to know those before they've even, started the game.
Yeah.
And I think that's the issue, because anybody rightly can become a landlord. You don't need any training or any qualifications to do it. However, you do have to comply by the law. And I think if you, one of the things that I'm going to welcome is the portal type approach that the government is going to go down. Every property that's been rented out in the sector will be on a register, a portal. And once you've got that that property on there, and de facto you will have a register of the landlords as well, you can then disseminate information to a landlord on what they need to do, what safety certificates they need, what the standards they need, whether the property needs to be licensed, etc., etc. All the things that, if you get it wrong, can end up being very, very expensive for a landlord, and in some cases criminal, and you could even go to jail if you get some of these wrong. So I think that will be the first thing. Everyone will have a little kind of automatic portal that they can go on, and you can disseminate information out there. But it is predicated on every single property being on that portal.
Okay, thank you for that. Could I ask you a question about the outlook? So the reports come out.
Yeah.
Immediately we had tenants celebrating on our channels, talking about, oh yes, now things are going to change for me. I'm going to get a fairer deal, and I'm super excited about what the government proposed. What would you say, actually, how would this paper affect the short term of the private renting sector? So about, let's say, the next 12 months or so.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? And of course, in between the paper being issued and the conversation we are now having, we have a lot of political change going on. So what you have to remember is a white paper is not a law. A white paper is not even what's called a bill. It is a set of proposals which will form into a bill, which is a proposal for a law. It then will have to be passed by Parliament and come into effect. So once it comes into effect, and then you've got then transition periods to bring it in, implementation periods, because some of this is not going to happen, just like a flick of a switch. So unfortunately, if you are expecting tomorrow to be different from today, it's not going to be. It's a direction of travel. This could take, in total, it could take two or more years to get into place. Some of the proposals might be quicker. Some of them won't come in for a while. So, if you are a tenant at the moment or landlord, don't expect overnight change. Don't panic. Nothing is going to change. The same relationship's going to go on. You have to remember that you already, as a tenant, have a huge number of rights and that you can exercise. So if you look through the paper, you will see that they're strengthening some of them or making access better to, but the laws already exist there. So you still have a lot of rights and powers. Landlords, not a lot will change for 99% of your day-to-day business, because most landlords, most tenants have a good relationship.
Okay. In the long term, so you mentioned already, giving us a little bit of a clue there, that it might take some time for some of this laws to come into place, if in fact they do, as you said, that we've had some change. How do you see things playing out in, say, the more long term, the 3 to 5 years? How do you see things working?
Okay, so with the rose tinted glasses on that, if this plan goes to is implemented in a joined up and an effective way, we could be looking at the quality of properties and the experience of renting being the best in the world if they get this right. Okay, that's the rose colored tinted. We could, however, end with a situation where, because we already have a stock issue, we might find that people are less reluctant to come into the market and provide the rental stock that we actually need. So that is the other scenario, that landlording will not be as attractive to landlords as it used to be. I think we're somewhere in between, and probably I'm optimistic we're more towards the positive side than the negative side. But there will be unforeseen consequences, and this is one of the reasons the white paper is put out, to kind of warn people and to highlight to people to come back and feedback about what the unforeseen consequences might be, and also to prepare people for a change. If you know something is coming, you can make preparations to put in place to adapt to it.
That's a really great answer, Sean. Actually, you've said quite a few things in there that I really want to touch on again. So first thing, you said if it all goes well, we may end up with having some of the best rental experiences in the world.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask you, what particularly do you think about the proposals will drive that?
Well, what they're looking for is introducing what's called decent home standard. So those people who are techie in health and safety stuff know that there is already a huge amount of health and safety stuff that you have to that property has to meet to be fit for rental. However, decent home standard goes beyond that, in the sense that it's not just what they call hazards, things that are going to physically damage somebody. It is taking it beyond that to almost a quality of life or quality of living in the property. So the property should be fit for purpose in the sense of it's relatively modern, that it's it can be kept warm to a decent standard, it's not old or inefficient or whatever. It goes beyond that. So I'm going to be very interested to see how they apply that, because they're going to use the template that they use for social housing to apply to the private sector, and take it along with revising the current health and safety regulations, bringing it into into the private sector. So it's going to be interesting how they're actually going to do that.
Okay, I think that answers that question really nicely. On that note, with improving the way that homes live, you mentioned in your previous answer housing stock. We have somewhat unprecedented situation right now where we've got somewhat low stock, which is driving up renting prices. Mm-hmm. So on the other hand, we've got a few landlords who are expressing concern about the white paper, and it's sort of giving them the jitters, and I think the knee-jerk reaction there was, well, this sounds like renting a home will no longer be profitable for me. I'm going to get out of this industry. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on those two dynamics?
Well, again, each individual landlord has to make a business decision on what works for them. And some do it really, really well, and others are, have been, I suppose, more complacent in the past about managing their portfolio or even their one or two properties, so that it maximizes the utility to them, the benefit to them. So we know that in most parts of the country, property prices are going up. So we know that your asset is going to grow in value. So that capitalization of your asset, I don't see that changing. I don't see a crash in the future. We have had them in the past. We have had blips in the past, but on the whole, it is generally going up. Rents are also going up at the moment, and that's a cost of living issue, which I think is going to need to be addressed, but will not last forever either. So rents will stabilise out, and of course, some of the implications of where the government want the quality of properties to go will mean capital expenditure on properties to bring them up to standard. So a lot of people I've spoken to are concerned, and again, most of them agree with the aspiration, but they're a little concerned about how we're going to deliver green homes. So in terms of the EPC rating will be at C by 2024, and that is a big challenge for a lot of the housing stock that we've got out there. So that again, that's going to be capital expenditure that the landlords will have to invest in to even allow the property to be on the market.
Agreed. I think I've seen numbers around the case that most will spend upwards of about £12,000 or so to get that working, which for many is probably a year's worth of rent. Already. So okay, that's interesting. What would you say to, in terms of unforeseen consequences that we've talked about, what would you say to people who are concerned about the ease of evictions, for example, coming into play?
Well, look, over the years that we've had, what's called no-fault evictions, there has been numerous tweaks to the legislation to protect tenants and to make it at times more difficult to get a possession order. I'm thinking about, with the numerous laws, deposit protection needs to be in place, EPC needs to be in place, the right to rent legislation, the how to rent guides. I can go on and on and on. All of these things that are, if you don't do those right things, you can't serve a Section 21. Retaliatory eviction legislation is out there, so you can't kick out a tenant just because they're complaining about repairing the property. So there have been curtails on the Section 21, but it is going to go, and it's going to be replaced by a system which is going to allow the landlord in certain circumstances to get possession of their property, but they have to give a reason for it. So that's the main change. So you can't just kind of like kick a tenant out because you want to put the rent up. There are going to be some protections for that, but you can, if you want to, for certain circumstances, you want to move back into the property, you want to sell it, you'll still have those protections. Okay,
excellent. So I think you covered it then in probably your very first answer, which is don't panic, not much to change. I think that's going to be maybe the summary of our entire conversation. Last couple, what would you say about the concern about pets and their suitability in some rental homes? Now, full disclosure, I have 2 cats. So I personally have pets, and there are tenants out there that would like to have pets, and unfortunately I've spoken to a number of tenants as well who got them behind their landlord's back. So what would you say about the proposals that the government has made regarding allowing pets in properties?
Well, for many people, that was a very pleasant surprise because a number of private members' bills. A private member bill is something which an ordinary MP can try and change the law by putting in a proposal. And there've been a couple of attempts with the private members' bill to get more PREP-friendly tenancies, which the government was kind of like not really receptive to at that time. And when I mean by that, if you know, the way Parliament works is it's got a set amount of time. If it doesn't give you the time to debate and implement a law, it never happens. So they never gave any indication that they were going to look down this route. And the main issue is kind of stemmed from, which has generally been a good bit of legislation, but an unforeseen consequences of an existing piece of legislation, the Tenant Fees Act. So yes, it's generally good that, that landlords cannot charge tenants a raft of fees that they used to do that. But one of the issues and unforeseen consequences is that landlords feel vulnerable when there is a danger of damage to a property from a pet, which is very, very rare, but it does occur. And in the past, you could have taken a slightly higher deposit and protected yourself in that way. Now, what they're proposing is very, very simple, is to say, well, actually, if you've got a risk of something, what do people normally do? Both of us have worked in the insurance industry. We know we insure something. So, it's not likely to happen, but you insure it. Now, this is saying is that, that a landlord can ask a tenant to take out an insurance to protect their interests in terms of damage to or cleaning to the property. That's about the essential thing that it is, but also reinforcing, which is already the intention and the law is not to kind of like to unreasonably put a blanket ban on pets. No pets, you can't do that, So that, along with the prejudice with people on benefits, that will be reinforced and go. That's all we're saying. There will be reasonable reasons not to have a pet. And the example I gave a few weeks back was a Great Dane on the 32nd floor of a tower block. It ain't going to work, is it?
Yeah.
I'm not even sure, bless you, 2 cats on the 32nd floor. Where do they go? The poor little things, I would be paranoid, and when it goes onto the balcony, So those sort of things are reasonable reasons, but you can't just have a blanket ban because you don't like the idea.
Agreed. And definitely there, as you say, there are properties that just is not suitable for a pet at all, unless you've got some sort of, I don't know, gerbil that just lives in a cage or something. So I think I would definitely agree with that. Last question. So a few landlords have been looking for ways in which to obviously mitigate the risks of these proposals, the evictions, the pets, the damage that they see happening. Speaking to the changes that are coming and how some might perceive that to be untenable to them, what would you say about the increased use of guarantors, for example, for all tenants, as we've kind of seen that trend increasing, where even tenants who may not necessarily have poor credit, etc., they're now being asked to provide guarantors. Would you see that as one of these unforeseen, potentially one of these unforeseen consequences of the?
Yes, I think inevitably the scrutiny on the suitability of tenants will increase, and in some ways that's right for 2 reasons. One, it protects the interests of the landlord. And B, it also protects the interests of the tenant. You don't want to put a tenant into a situation where they're set up to fail. you know, and I think putting a tenant that, you know, is not going to sustain or be able to sustain paying the rent in a particular property, you don't really want to put them into that position. So yeah, again, you know, the thing with a guarantor is a guarantor, you know, is only a guarantor in the last resort. Affordability is the you know, is the key thing there, and I do think that that is a bigger problem than just this white paper. It's a bigger problem that we could talk even longer about. The affordability in the property market, that comes down to stock, that comes down to investing in good quality rental property in the country on a longer term. This white paper is not the panacea to solve that, but that, you know, but it will have a focus for landlords and for tenants on a more professional and a more diligent approach to renting out property.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sean. Do you have any final words? Final words for tenants in the sector? Let's start with them.
Okay, so for tenants in the sector, this is generally going to improve your experience and tidy up a lot of the legislation that we've got at the moment. So hopefully, if it leads to better quality property and better protections for tenants, is going to be a positive thing there. Now, I know that you know, and one of the fears was that this was going to be delayed further because of the political situation. The reality is that they're pushing forward with it, but this is not a finished cake. It could change, and I did pick up at a round table that I was on literally on Tuesday with people from all around the sector, both tenants, landlords, you know, organisations. Everybody was represented in some shape or form. There is still some concerns in terms of the notice periods and the other protections there. This technically could be amended as well, so we have to see that this, you know, this could be amended to change some of the periods, you know. So watch this space, really. That's the question, the answer to that one. I'm assuming you're going to ask what should landlords look forward to, you know. And they should be looking forward to an increase, you know, a continuing vibrant sector that is outperforming any other form of investment in you know, at the moment, and will continue to do that. But they're going to have to up their game, and they are going to have to take a lot more interest in you know, in providing the product that is so desperately needed, which is good quality housing. If they are not able to do that, they have two choices. They can either employ somebody to do it, and there are loads of really good agents and really good organizations there that can help and assist. That will come at a cost, but it's better than the consequences of the fines. Or they have an option of saying, well, actually, I want to go somewhere nice in the sun and enjoy the fruits of my labour, and you can, you know, sell the property to a landlord or who is prepared to put in the changes and adapt with the new regime.
Thank you so much, Sean. I think you said there in the final moments my favourite thing, which is landlords have a product, and I think many times people forget that it's, you are selling something to someone who wants to buy it, and your rental home is a product, and you know, you have to put a sheen on it. You have to deliver the best product that you can, and not expect people to put up with poor products. We know, definitely not in 2022. I think people are very savvy about where they spend their money now, so I guess rental homes shouldn't be any different.